everyone, what's going on? My name is Tektarkus, and thank you so much for joining me for this intro video to our first Alpha 21 series. Welcome! Well, I decided to make a short intro video instead of trying to explain all the rules and settings for the series on day one. As you saw in the title, the series is called Weapons Roulette. Now the basic idea is very simple. Every morning before you leave the house to do jobs for the traders, or, just to loot in general, the weapons we get to use that day will be randomly selected for us by a roulette wheel. Now let me demonstrate. Here's an example of how the wheels will look like. On the left, we have a wheel for melee weapons, and on the right, we have a wheel for ranged weapons. First, we click this scramble button, which will randomize the items in the wheels. Now, in case you didn't see that, I'll click it again. And then we click the spin button, which will obviously make it spin, and then we just wait for the results. And these are the weapons we get to use for the whole day. In this example, our melee weapon is the wooden club, and our ranged weapon is a pipe rifle. So that's the basic idea. But of course there are a few more details. So first, how do weapons get added to the wheels? Now at the very beginning, we'll craft all the primitive weapons as soon as we're able to. So that includes the wooden club, the stone sledgehammer, stone spear, pipe baton, knuckle wraps, and then the primitive bow. And then we'll add them to the wheels. Now after that, we'll add weapons as we find them or as we buy them. And we cannot get rid of any weapons. The second question is, what if we get a weapon that we don't have ammo for? And the answer to that question is, well, that's too bad. That's still the weapon we gotta use that day, and we better hope that we find ammo along the way. The third question is, how many weapons can we spin for? And this is where I had to make some rules. At the beginning, the primitive bow will be our only ranged weapon, so we'll just spin for a melee weapon until we get more ranged weapons. Now in the usual gameplay, I always only use one melee weapon, so that's all we'll spin for in this series too. In terms of ranged weapons, I'm going to say we can use one ranged weapon for Tier 1 and Tier 2 jobs, 2 ranged weapons for Tier 3 and Tier 4 jobs, and 3 ranged weapons for Tier 5 jobs. Now in terms of how multiple ranged weapons get selected, it actually looks the same. It's going to be one wheel. They're just going to have multiple markers. Instead of one, there'll be 2 or 3 markers. You'll see when the time comes. For Horde Nights, we'll respin the wheels right before the Horde. And we'll allow 1 ranged weapon for the first 2 Horde Nights, 2 for the next 2 Horde Nights, and 3 ranged weapons after that. So these are the basic rules. I haven't actually tried this, so if we come across other questions as we're playing, we'll just have to make decisions on the spot. Now, when I think about this new series, I think the challenges are going to be threefold. The first, which is the main challenge, is that we can't choose the weapons we want to use. We could potentially get sent to a Tier 5 job with a stone spear, a pipe pistol, and a pipe shotgun. Now, I think the odds of that happening is pretty low, but if it does happen, that would be totally crazy. The second part of the challenge is that we'll be forced to use weapons we usually don't use. For example, I never use the spear, batons, or knuckles, and I almost never use rifles or the rocket launcher. But in this series, we'll have to use them as they get selected. And finally, spending skill points will be challenging. We don't know which weapons we're going to be using, so we can't just pump our skill points into 1 or 2 weapons. You know, like we did in our No Gun series, where we put most of our skill points into Pummel Pete and Skull Crusher. I don't know exactly how I'm going to manage that yet, but we'll just have to see. In terms of the game setting, the seed for the random gen world is Roulette with a capital R. The difficulty setting will be at Warrior. To be honest, I've actually never played at Warrior difficulty, so that'll be interesting. And the daylight length is set at 18 hours. Otherwise, everything else is set at default. And that's it for the rules and settings. Like I said, I haven't actually tried this, and we're jumping right into Alpha 21 with this new series, so it should be interesting. Especially because I intentionally haven't been keeping track of all the new updates and features for Alpha 21. Anyways everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this intro video. I hope it sounds fun, and I hope you decide to join me on day 1. It should be coming out in a few days. So until then, you guys take care and take it easy.